All right, Don, we're recording. So everybody just don't forget to use the raise hand feature if you have a question so you can get in line for whatever's going on. And Don, it is all yours.
Okay, welcome everybody. And I want to thank everybody who sent a donation. Every bit is helping. I've had to replace quite a bit of hives out there. And I want to thank all the people who's buying the E-plans to make their own boxes. And we seem to have a lot of people are losing swarms. If you insist on stacking boxes as high as you can reach, you're going to lose bees. If you stack boxes more than 2 to 3 boxes high, you better plan on going down to the bottom board every 14 days or you're going to lose bees. Because when a hive gets that strong, they do 2 things. They multiply and they store honey. And stacking one box on another does not make much sense. You're better off to pull that honey, because I've seen hives 7 boxes high one day, go out the next day, and half or 3/4 of the honey is missing. And the next thing is swarms. This is prime swarm season. And if you're going to catch bees, you probably do a whole lot better with just foundation, maybe a little bit of lemongrass oil, rub it around the box. Don't put comb in there. I mean, if you got old comb and you put it in there, if you collect a swarm in 10 days, you're going to be lucky. Anything longer than that, you're going to get wax moth in there, and it's going to destroy the comb. So a lot of people are trying to set swarm traps out. I have caught just as many swarms with boxes sitting on a pallet as I have sitting in a tree as high as I can reach. So no need to climb a ladder, stack those hives up so high. The bees need a house, they're going to move in. Main thing is have the box available. Now, when we start getting our swarms, first thing you need to do is, once you have swarm cells in your box, you've gone through there every 14 days and you found, say, 3 or 4 frames. The smartest thing to do is either move one frame that's got queen cells on it, or if it's wood and wax, cut 1 to 2 queen cells out, take a frame of honey, put it in a nuke box, and shake a frame to 2 frames additional bees. Now, if nothing works out, you've lost nothing, because more than likely you have more than one hive. At the most, they rob it out. But if you have a good, ripe queen cell, you're going to have a queen. And then once the queen returns, there's enough comb there with honey in it, they'll clean up a spot, and when you see the queen starting to lay, that is the time to add some more frames. People are going out and they're taking good, strong hives, and they're making a half split. You're losing too many bees. Do it the way commercial people do. Risk the least amount of bees to get the most benefit back. You take a 10-frame hive and do a walk away, you've lost 6 to 8 weeks, because the minute you walk away from that, it's going to take 16 days for them to make a queen, another 5 to 7 days for her to hatch, fly out, and mate. From that point there, count 21 days. Those bees are still not going to do you one bit of good, because they're too young to fly, they're babies. So add another 3 weeks for they get field bees. It's much smarter to let the bees make queen cells, move that off to the side, let them hatch that queen out, fly out, and mate. You've got a separate box there all by itself. When you do it that way, the hive is still making production. If you do a walk-away split, the minute you do that, those bees are concentrating more on making queen cells. Honey production starts to fall. They're filling the box up with stuff to make queens. So that's why you lose a lot of production. Now, there's a lot of people out there that's doing different things, and that's why we have a chat. So I'm going to open the questions up. If you've got questions about splitting, making honey, whatever you got, I'm open for questions.
All right, Paul, you are up next. Go ahead.
So Don, when you're saying you let the hive make queen cells and then you're going to do your splits with those queen cells, shouldn't you take the original queen out also? Won't the hive
No, whenever you take the original queen out, that hive is going to lose production at that minute. But if you leave the hive intact with the queen, she's going to keep on laying. The production is going to stay the same. Nothing's going to change. You move the frame that has the queen cells, then shake some extra bees in it. And you don't have to close them up. I do it 2 foot, 20 foot, whatever I have a space. You want the old bees, which is your field bees. Those are your working bees. They go back to the parent hive, so nothing happens. It goes back to 2 basic things. Those bees multiply, they store honey. When you crowd them, they make queen cells. Now, when you start putting 5 or 10 boxes high, that hive is just borderline swarming all the time. And if something comes up and you don't get in it for the 16th or 17th day, you're going to have swarm cells. You're going to lose a lot of bees.
Well, let me ask you this also. Like, when it's time to add supers, like I just added the first super. Now, some people add 2 at a time. You know, what do you recommend?
If you want to make the most honey production, if you've got, say, 2 brood boxes, then put 1 super on. Let them start to fill it and draw it out. When you get 3 to 4 frames, draw it out. Set the second box underneath the first box that you put on. They have to come through that to work it, so they'll draw it out a whole lot faster.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to make more honey, put a hive top feeder on it and put just plain water in it. They're going to make 1 gallon to 3 gallons more honey just for that plain old water.
Yeah. All right. And I just added some Ross rounds also, so I want to see how I make out with that as well.
Okay.
So,
How many boxes high are you when you put your Ross rounds on? 3
I didn't-
boxes?
No, on my double brood box hives, I only have the well, I still have 1 full super of honey on there, and I have now the Ross rounds below that.
Are you running a queen excluder on it?
Yeah.
I would put an extra box on top and take the queen excluder off. They'll fill it a lot faster. The queen excluder is going to be a restrictor. They're not going to pass through it as easy. Or you can drill a 1 1/8 inch hole on the underneath of the handhold and give them an outside upper entrance, and that will help if you're going to run a queen excluder. I personally don't run queen excluder.
No, I know that. I know you're not fond of them. I have the holes on all of my boxes. I don't have it on the Ross rounds though. But I noticed they're using those holes more than the main entrance.
They're telling you they don't like to squeeze through that little openings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bees are talking to you if you just take the time to listen.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Okay?
Okay. Tyler, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, Don. Hello from Ohio. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little
Can you
bit.
hear me? How about now?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Don. This is my first chat ever. I'm a brand new beekeeper. I'm up here in Ohio. Got a couple questions for you. So I kind of started off a little bit wrong based on from what I've learned from you, but I'm learning quickly. I wanted to know is how long should I feed my bees? I've put sugar water. The first 2 packages I got I put them in April 20th leave. And I've had sugar water to them ever since. And there was a period about 2 weeks ago where they kind of slowed down on taking the sugar water. And the last couple days here, they've been pounding the water, and I can't even keep it in there fast enough. They just keep draining it. How long should I keep sugar water on them?
If they're pulling sugar water that much, then you got a lot of new comb in there and they're building comb. I would put it on there
Okay.
as long as they take it. Because if there's a good honey flow, and where you're at right now probably don't have that much of a honey flow. So they're
Yeah.
using that to draw comb.
Okay.
Now, are you mixing it up a 2 to 1?
Yeah, I'm mixing 2 to 1.
Okay. That should help, once they get enough going there and your honey flow starts, they won't take that sugar water.
Okay. And as far as splits, so I did one split yesterday, my first split. I had an extra queen that I ended up getting, and I just took them out of my 8 frame and popped it in I made a couple of those mini mating nukes like David down at Barnyard Bees talks about. And I took 1 frame of brood stages and I popped it in a box and put that queen in there. Is that the right thing to do, and put sugar water to them and let them build that out, or?
Well, whenever you take a mated queen and you put her in a restricted area, you run that risk of losing. The mini nukes or the small 5 frame boxes, they're basically made for making queens. So if you got a mated queen, best thing to do is shake 2 or 3 frames of bees in there and then just let her go.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
One other question I had. When should I start treating for mites? Like I have 5 packages now. I installed 3 more last week. When should I start?
If whoever you got packages has been treating their bees, you shouldn't have to worry about mites for, at least until the first brood cycle comes out. Then you start watching for them.
Okay.
Because
All
on
right.
packages, it's very few mites usually go in packages. It's when you get packages or something from people that just don't treat at all, then they carry a lot of mites.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, Sheila, you are up next. Oh, hold on. Let me get you unmuted. There you go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. If I continue to use my smoker in the hive, will there be a buildup of residue in the comb from that smoker?
If you're smoking like a lot of people do, yes. A lot of people, especially on Ross rounds, it's best to use no smoke. Now, I teach smoking a hive. I mean, it's so basic, but most people don't realize. I don't smoke directly into a hive. I smoke next to the hive, and I let the smoke just kind of rise up and float across the frames. You just need a whiff of it. That's all you need. And the bees, they'll move on down.
Okay. And then I heard somebody the other day talking about a cell builder hive. Do you know what that is? What is that?
Well, if people want to get into grafting, I mean, the easiest way to talk about that is people come, first thing they want to do is a graft. And to me, it's like riding a tricycle. They can barely ride a tricycle, but they come here and they want to ride a high performance motorcycle first day on the job. You have to take everything step by step. Now, to have a cell builder, you're looking at probably turning out 200 to 500 queens a week. So if you're not doing that and you don't want to devote one hive just for developing cells, you're better off to do it the way I try to teach. Let the bees do it by themselves.
Right.
One hive can make 50 queen cells. What do you run, 8 frame or you run 10 frame stuff?
I run a 10 frame now, but I only have 3 hives. It's very small, but I'm always interested when people are talking about different aspects of beekeeping. I just didn't know what a cell builder hive was.
A cell builder hive basically is where you can either run a queen right hive or you can run a queenless hive. Okay. We run cell builders out of 5 frame boxes, and we set up a cell builder just for grafting. We dump 3 3-pound packages in on comb. We let them sit for 24 hours. Then we dump 2 more packages in. Then we set 90 cells in. Wow. 2 frames with, there's 15 cells to a bar. There's 3 bars. So you got 45 queen cells to a frame. We put 2 in there. Now on one side, you got a frame of pollen and a frame of open honey. And then you have a frame of sealed brood that makes sure that it's all sealed. You have no eggs. Right. If you have any eggs, they'll abandon those cells and they'll take the cell, the natural cell, and make queen cells.
Makes sense.
A lot of people, they read too much high-tech stuff. You know, grafting is fine if you want to turn out several thousand queens.
Yeah, no.
But the average person can't even let, if a hive makes queen cells
Right.
and you cut out 15 cells a week, you cannot build enough equipment to keep up with just that.
Right.
And when the bees make those queen cells, they're far better than when I can graft or anybody else can graft. The
Okay.
bees have done it themselves.
Right. Okay.
So it's more
Thank-
natural.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Sure.
Okay, over to Anthony.
Hey, Don. Hello,
Hey.
everybody. We were talking about entrances and holes and stuff. It looks to me like the bees prefer a hole rather than a landing board and an entrance like we give them. Only one of my hives has a vent hole in the front. And this one has about a 2-inch hole. I think it's a 2-inch hole. And then I think it's number 5 screen that's over there. And the bees actually fit through that screen. And that hive, those bees never use the entrance. They all go in and out of the screen over the vent hole in the front. It just seems like it's more natural to them, a hole, like a hole in a wall, a hole in the tree. They don't really need a landing board and a big opening. I think they prefer a hole. So now that's one thing. And now those big black hornets are back. They reemerged. And that's what they do. They're here from like June to December, and then they die off. And I put some screens on there. I made a video of some they're like robber screens, but I put them on there so that the bees can sit outside without getting picked off, and it gives them a little protection. But I never noticed it last year. Maybe they were doing it, but I never noticed it. This is the first year that I actually saw the hornet land and walk right inside like he owned the place. And I saw it several times now. And I didn't see that at all last year. And I was out there with him a lot because I was killing them almost every day. And that's a weak hive. That's my weakest hive. So they're just going in there, and they've just about decimated that hive. I think later today, I'm going to take those 200 or 300 bees that are left, and I'm going to combine them into another box that needs a little strength. I'll probably spray them with vanilla, and I'll mix them up together later. But I'm thinking of drilling a hole in the front of all of my boxes and putting a number 5 screen over there. And that way the hornets can't get in at all. I'll block the entrances, and I'll give them a hole to go in. And that might help me this year. So I'm not battling them for the next 6 months.
Well, when you talk about a hole and people buy these kits, I mean, these are some super fancy kits with copper roofs, landing boards, and all this stuff here. And when you have an old beat up box laying out in your bee yard, just falling apart and the bees going that, I think they're telling you something. I mean, man is trying to sell you more gadgets and things that you really don't even need. Keep it as simple as possible.
Let me say one other thing. You know about that B401 Sertan stuff? You know about that?
No.
B401 and Sertan, and I think it's also called Xentari, Xentari.
You're talking about moth inhibitor?
Yeah, wax moth.
Yeah, Sertan, yeah.
Yeah, it's a natural fungus that I think it's a fungus in there that kills the larvae. I have a bait box here. This thing's probably been out here for 3 months. And it's got 4 or 5 frames of old black comb in it. So I sprayed it with that stuff. I sprayed the comb with that, and I put it in there. And let's say 2 or 3 weeks later, I opened up the lid just to take a look. And I saw a wax moth in there, an adult wax moth, but no damage to any of the old comb that was in there. So I sprayed them again. And I think I have a better chance of getting pregnant than me catching a swarm here in my area. So I haven't paid much attention to this box. The other night we had an unbelievable, like a downburst storm. And I don't have a brick on top of this bait box. It's sitting here on top of my wall, and it blew the cover off. And it was raining sideways, so I didn't go out there. I just let it rain. And then the next day when I went out there to shake the water out of the combs and take a look, there's no wax moth damage to 4 or 5 combs in that box. And it's been there for like 3 months. So maybe that stuff really works.
But you know what? If you have a hive that's strong, you don't need any of that stuff. Wax moth only goes in a hive that's real weak.
You know, but I said it several times, and you've probably seen it, is we don't have small hive beetles here. They're just not in Thailand. If you look at the distribution map, they're not here. And don't really have mites in this area, but boy, we make up for it in wax moths. We got a lot of wax moth. And even in my really strong hive that's got a lot of bees in it, I see little bits on the bottom board of where they've put larvae in jail. So they're managing it. They're managing it in the strong hive, like you just said, yeah. But they'll still go in there, but they don't do well, I guess. All right, I'll let someone else go. Thanks, Don.
Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Hey, Don, I have a question. I made about 6 or 7 splits using your method the other day. And, you know, I see bees going in and out, but I've never really gotten the answer yet of, do I start to feed them yet? You know, because I don't even know if they're hatched yet. I haven't gone in there.
Where do you live?
I'm in New York.
You better feed. Up there, there's not a honey flow up there yet. If there is, it's very light. So if you didn't make a split with a lot of honey, you're going to have to feed them. Now, when you feed them, you're going to have to be careful you don't cause robbing situation going on.
Right. Well,
splits with a ripe queen cell, or did you make them with a mated queen?
no, these are off of my main hives. They've been, you know, making crazy swarm cells and supersedure cells. So I put about 3 or 4 of each in each nuke. And I gave them about a frame of honey, like you say, you know, not exactly a full frame, but, you know, when they build the honey on the outside, one of those, you know, and then a couple frames of bees. So
did you shake the bees into the hive, or did you put the whole frame in there?
I put the whole frame in.
You're better off to shake the frame into the box. If you're too close in proximity, you can probably just put screen hardware cloth over the opening. But when you put a whole frame in there, you're always going to get some of the field bees to fly back. And then the hive is going to be weak. It's not going to be able to protect those frames. Then you end up getting wax moth in there, or you'll end up getting a small hive beetle problem. But you know, where you at, you probably don't have a beetle problem this time of the year. Another month, 6 weeks, you probably get a beetle problem.
So can I go back now and shake a couple frames of bees in there?
Why not? If the queen is not hatched yet, you could add bees to it. The bees don't start killing one another until you have a queen in there for them to protect.
Gotcha. All right, that's it. Thanks, Don.
Okay.
Okay, over to Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Don, how are you doing tonight?
Hey.
Good. Hey, I've got a question. I want to do a newspaper combine. I've got a weak hive, and I want to do a newspaper combine. I want to put the queen on top. Does she need to be on top, or could she be in? Will that work if I put her in the top box, or does she need to be in the bottom box?
If you're putting a newspaper there, you shouldn't have to worry about it at all.
Okay.
Why would you want to combine a hive this time of the year?
Well, I got one that I believe it's queenless, and this was a split that I had, and where the queen is in a nuke. So I'm going to add it to I've got double deeps, 8 frame double deeps, and I want to add that queen.
I would, instead of trying to combine, whenever you combine, you're backing up. And when you're backing up, a few backups, and pretty soon you don't have hives.
Right.
The smartest thing that I would do is if they're not making a queen cell, or if it's not queen right, add one frame with the minimal amount of eggs. Don't get a full frame of eggs and everything and put it in a weak hive, because if there's not enough bees to cover it, they're going to get chill brood or they'll get overheated. And whatever is outside that cluster where they can protect it, you're going to lose that. So risk the least amount of resources.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'll try that. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, over to Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Don, just like what you were saying with the hive beetles, I haven't seen any hive beetles as of yet, and I'm in New York as well. But I was just wondering, are they all year by you?
Well, it just depends on how you're managing your hives. I've got hives in open areas. I've got them under pine thickets. We are probably running 3 to 5 beetles in a box right now, but I'm on top of it. I stay with it. You can either do the beetle traps, or I'm running Crisco and eucalyptus mixed together. And I wasn't going to put it out, but I've had several people come here and watch my hives and look at them and see. It seems to be working fairly well. It's just I'm experimenting with it. I'm not ready to say it's good, but I'm not saying the beetles that I did a year ago. So I'm constantly trying things and see what works the best.
Yeah, last year I used those beetle traps where you put the oil in them. You know, you just got to watch that you don't spill the oil out on the bee. But that's a pain in the ass trying to get those things out and emptying them.
Well, the thing about that is, even if you don't have beetles and you put that oil in there, especially vegetable oil, once it gets rank, it's like putting a sign up. You attract more that you would never get in there just because of the smell.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to weigh out what your results are.
I tell you, you know, last year I really didn't have a lot of beetles. I mean, they were in there, you know, but it's like you said, I think the bees pretty much took care of it on their own.
Your best bet, if you're starting to get a lot of beetles, I've done several videos on, do a change out where you set your box that's existing on the ground or on another box, put a new hive in place, and frame by frame, go through there and transfer them into the new box and examine, check for queen cells, check for stretch comb, do your good inspection. When you get to the bottom and you made sure that the queen's in that box where you set up, then in the corners of them hives, usually they'll pile up. You can get 50, 100 of them at a time. And hive tool is the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
I guess we went through our boxes today, and we found a frame that was in one of our bottom boxes. It was completely full of honey. It had about a quarter size of brood on it, and we pulled that out. And you know, we weren't part of the last bee chat, but so we don't know if you discussed that. But I'm under the impression that this time of year, especially in Louisiana and Don, where you're probably at, we're in the honey flow right now.
Right.
And it's important to get that, but the honey, you got to be paying attention to a honey bound box where the queen doesn't have anywhere to lay.
Right.
And I thought that I'd get your take on that.
Well, I've had people coming by in just the last 2-3 weeks, and they want to buy a queen. And just by talking to them, I say, well, is the box quiet? They say, yeah, the box is quiet, but there's absolutely no eggs, no larvae. And once you start talking to them and you start questioning what they're looking at, they're seeing frames that got honey or liquid in all the cells. So there's no place. Now, if you're running a single brood chamber, now would be the time to checkerboard. Every other frame, put a new sheet of foundation in, expand that brood chamber out. And if you got a frame that's completely sealed, I mean, you could extract it, then put it in the top. It's another way to do it.
No, we cut it out and put it in jars.
Well, if it comes out of the brood chamber, and if you haven't had more than about 2 cycles of brooding it, I mean, you could probably stand it, but you know, you could cut out the top part where there's no brood in it, because once you get those cocoons, they're kind of chewy.
No, this was a swarm we caught. So Yeah, we go foundationless, so
Yeah.
it was brand new foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I discovered, I watched your video on using fishing line,
Yeah.
and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. And I found this stuff. It's red fishing line. It really, for me, it worked a little bit better because I can kind of see it better fishing it through these frames and everything. I thought I'd mention that. I don't know.
Well, you know, there's some people, some of my students use 8-pound. I try to go 10 to 12 pound because my eyesight. It's just easier to do it. And when you put the tacks in, you've got to start your tack and drive it down to 1/8. Make about 5 or 6 rounds of it and hit it one time. If you hit it twice, you're going to bruise that monofilament and it'll break right there.
Okay. Well, appreciate that.
Mhm.
I think that's all we had. Thank you, Don.
Okay.
Okay, back to Tyler. Go ahead.
Hey, Don. One thing I have had an issue with the last couple days here, I noticed there's been a lot of black ants in my hive top feeders.
Right.
And I watched one of your videos on YouTube and you said to use cinnamon.
Mhm.
And I did that and the ants appeared to not even care about the cinnamon. They're just running right over it. So is there any other ideas what I could do for that or?
Well, if the ants really bother you, you might shake some cayenne pepper in there. I mean, personally, you know, the little tiny black ants or the brown ants, they really don't bother me. Some people, it bothers them. But if you have a lid that's not fitting on top of your hive top feeder and it's got a crack or a little gap there, ants get in there. They absolutely are not going to hurt it because when you pop your feeder off, you can see that the feeder is sealed down. They seal it. So nothing is actually inside the hive. They're just above the frames in that.
Yeah, because I've got on the front and the back of the hive top feeder, I put holes.
Right.
And then I've got holes going from the hive top feeder down into the brood boxes. But it just, I didn't know. I did see where somebody took and, built a hive stand and then took like a paint can or whatever and put that around the legs and then filled it up with used motor oil so the ants can't even get onto the stand. I didn't know if that would work or not.
Well, some people that's got 4 or 5 hives, they might go to them extremes, but when you start running hundreds or, more than that, they're just, it's not practical. So it don't really bother nothing. If the hive is strong, now in a nuke when you made a split, you might get some ants in there, but most of the time on a new split, you don't get ants in there until you start feeding them or you got honey that's leaking out.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Anthony.
Yeah, I'd just say 2 things. For Tyler, Don just said, if you're a commercial guy, you got a lot of hives, you're not going to deal with dams and whatever, but dams work 100%. If you have dams, if your hive stand accommodates you put in a dam there, you won't have any ants. I have 7 hives and I have dams on all of mine. I have a bowl with a brick in it, little piece of brick, because all my hives are on wooden tables, and it keeps the wood up out of the water so it doesn't rot. And I just put water in mine because I'm on artificial grass, and you won't have any ants, guaranteed. And the other thing I want to say for my buddy Paul there, I saw a clip just within the last week where a guy was showing using beetle blaster traps, but instead of putting mineral oil in them, he put diatomaceous earth in there instead of the oil. Mm-hmm. And so you don't need to deal with the oil. And I've never used them, so I've never had one in my hand. But, he was showing it's difficult to get the top off and it's difficult to reuse it. But he used diatomaceous earth, and then he was showing where you take the thing and put it in a bucket of water and shake it, and you can get everything out of it and use it again. That was, I might have seen that in Friendly Beekeeper or somewhere, but if I see that clip, I'll try to bring it over to our group so you can see it. But it was just another alternative, put diatomaceous earth in there instead of putting oil in there.
All right, thanks, Anthony. I'll give that a shot.
Okay, buddy. Just wanted to share that. Okay, go ahead, E.
Okay. Yeah. And Scott, you are up next. Go ahead.
Hey, Don, I've been trying to do splits, and y'all was just talking about the sugar ants, and I can't even make a split with the sugar ants. As soon as I put in one, you know, like I'll even try to put 2 frames in there, and the sugar ants just come in there and just run them out. Any suggestions on that?
I've never had a problem with ants on a split. Usually, unless you're feeding, are you putting open honey in there, or you got something?
No, I'm trying not to, but you have that little band, on the top, and I reckon that's what they're coming for. And then once they eat all the honey, then they go in there and they get in the brood. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Let's see, 8-frame boxes, or are you making them in a 5-frame boxes?
5 frame.
Are you setting your boxes up high enough?
Yeah, they're on I got them on a cylinder block, standing up straight with the 4x4s on it. They're about, they're about knee high.
I got mine all knee high, but now if you got cinder blocks, it might be harder. I would probably put you some 6x6s, cross them down, coat them with grease, or put motor oil. Just coat them in motor oil. That sometimes deters it.
I've tried the Vaseline and all that, and cinnamon and all that, and that hadn't worked.
Yeah.
I was going to try. Will diesel fuel fumes, will they kill the bees?
Well, if you put it on the ground, I mean, it's good for weed control. It's good for fire ants, but unless they're really, taking over your hives, I wouldn't worry about ants. Ants never seem to be a problem for making splits.
As long as I have a strong, all my hives, they're fine. But when I try to do a split, that's when it happens.
It sounds like when you're making a split, you're getting all nurse bees.
Okay.
If you got nurse bees in there, that's like having a nursery, and having a bunch of bandits come in here. The babies ain't going to do nothing. But if you go into the older section, they're going to defend themselves.
Okay,
you might be making 2 splits might be nothing but all nurse bees, or you made them so close that all your field bees is flying back.
Yeah, maybe keep them in there for a day or 2, then let them loop, where they'll orientate back to there.
Well, if you're making that close a split, then probably the best thing to do is put screen wire over the entrance, keep them screened up for 2 days.
Okay.
That way they'll automatically reorient.
Okay, that's what I'll do.
Put those frames in there, you should have good coverage of bees on the frames. If
they're full.
The next day and you don't have a whole lot of bees in there.
They're full. I mean, it's unbelievable to show. I'm gonna take a video and send it to you of one.
Is the bees hatching out, or how are you making your splits?
I'm taking the 5 frame and I'm a nuke, and I'm putting 2 frames of brood. I'm trying to get at least of the nectar I can. And,
are you doing it with a queen cell?
No, I'm doing it. They're making the queen cell.
Well, see, there's your problem. They won't defend that hive. If you had a queen cell in there or a mated queen, they're going to defend that hive a lot stronger. That might be your biggest problem.
That's my problem then.
If you didn't join us when we first started, I was talking about a queen cell and put it against the wall with a frame of honey and shake you some extra bees in there. Now, at that point, there's nothing in there to guard. They're going to take care of that queen cell. So when you put 2 frames in there, you're putting a lot of, reserves in there that you don't need.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. So don't put just give me some queen cells and put them in there.
Cells in there and shake you some bees in there and close them up for a day. You only need enough honey in there to feed them for a day to 2 days.
Yeah, I'm trying not to put as much honey as I can, but it's around, you got that band around the top, and all right.
Don't you have honey supers?
No, I'm just, all I'm really trying to do is to get my bees where I can make splits, and get established where I'm comfortable with it, and I'm coming to get some of your bees.
I would run, if you're running 5-frame boxes, I would run, a medium super on it. And I would use basically nothing but honey. That's the way I try to approach it. That way, all you risk is a queen cell and some honey. And if you got more than 10 or 15 hives, if they do rob it out, they're just going to move it from one hive to another. But when you put 2 frames of brooding there, if the temperature gets hot or it gets cold, they're going to haul dead bees out. Now, once they haul white larvae and stuff out, you're going to have a lot of ant problems then. Are they hauling any kind of dead bees out or larvae or anything?
They're doing it whenever the sugar ants take over.
Well, they're taking over because they're hauling those dead carcasses out, and they're not getting them all out.
So I don't have enough field bees in there.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Don.
Okay.
I'll let somebody else talk. Thank you.
Okay.
Back to Matt.
People mentioning ants, and we did have a little bit of a problem with one of our nooks, but I didn't experiment with this, so I can't conclusively say that it works, but we have about 5 nooks, six,
Seven.
something like it, 6 or 7, on a stand. We put tar paper down. I had some extra tar paper from a previous project, and they sell it in a huge roll. You can't buy, the 10 feet you need. You got to buy like 300 feet of it. At any rate, so I put that underneath the hives before I put the stand down, and I mean, it leaked sugar water all over that. I messed up, and we got sugar water all over it. I haven't seen an ant yet. I'm not saying it works for sure, but it's easy. It's a lot easier than if you got more than a couple of hives, like Anthony was talking about. If you've got dozens of hives, so I just wanted to put that out there. It may be an effective means, because I don't think they like walking on that tar.
Well, it's like old metal roofing. I've had students dig an old metal roofing and put hives on top of that. It gets so hot, if anything hits it, it cooks them. Another thing is that landscape material, commercial landscape material, they put underneath the hive. Each person's going to have to find what is working for them. On the commercial side of it don't make sense. I mean, you can't do it on a commercial side.
Right.
And we're up to 14 hives or something, so it's fine for us.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. If you got,
and it looks neat and tidy, and there are no weeds. And
the weeding and all that, you don't have to get up underneath the stands and everything.
And the hive beetles, when they fall on it, they cook.
Hopefully they cook.
Yep, that they will.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, I think Anthony was talking about the diatomaceous earth. I just want to put this out there. Be very careful with that if you're going to put it in the hive, because it will also kill the bees. It's similar to boric acid as far as I understand it. We've been adding it to our chicken food to keep the roaches and stuff. It'll kill any insect. So, if you put mineral oil or something like that into those, if you spill a little bit, you may kill a few bees, but it doesn't get everywhere. So everything has its pros and cons. So just be very careful with that stuff if you use it in the hive. And I saw somewhere somebody had mentioned using something like lye in those beetle blaster traps. I
wouldn't use lye,
because what ends up happening is the lye will keep the beetles from decomposing. So you can put it into the beetle traps and leave them in there, and as the beetles get, in case you leave it for too long. I haven't tried it. I just read about it.
Well, there's a lot of things that you'll read that don't do. I mean, years ago, we used lye to cook frames because it cleans them really good. I would think if you put dry lime in a beehive, within 48 hours, it's going to have enough moisture to activate the lime, and it's going to throw out a gas, and you're going to kill bees. That's just my thing. I wouldn't put it in a hive.
Okay, great. Well, that's why I'm asking the question. But I just wanted to mention that also about the diatomaceous earth, and
Yeah.
to me,
Now, you can put CD traps in the hive. You could use beetle blasters. They have an agricultural line, which, you put that in there and that seems to do pretty good on the beetles. But, when you do commercial, I'm trying to teach backyard beekeeping, commercial beekeeping, and hobby beekeeping. And so I have to teach a lot of different techniques. Like a lot of people will make a comment that, if this thing is working that you do, why are you doing all these other treatments? Because you have to put other options out there for other people. They have to pick and choose what they want to use.
And that may have been what I read was lime. I may have said lime, but maybe I read lime, and I don't. It's been a year or two since I read that, so.
There's probably not a whole lot of materials that I haven't come across or tried or done in all the years. There's a fellow that I know that was in Arkansas, absolutely had no mites at all. And the bee inspector asked him what he was treating with. He was treating with powdered garlic. But the downside of that is by dusting your frames down with garlic, you're going to get a residue in there. You're going to have honey that's going to have a garlicky taste. And if you get garlic powder on a queen, you're going to descent her, and we're going to put her out. That's the only problem. Everything has got good points and bad points. You have to weigh what is good for you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Don. That's
Okay.
I think all we had.
Okay, Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to what Matt said, the beetle blaster, you can fill it outside the hive and then the bees can't get inside it. So, but I don't discount your point. I know that it can kill the bees, so I fully agree with that. For Scott, even if you have your hive on a cinder block standing up on end, you can still make a dam. You just need a bigger dish. One thing you could put under there is those little dishes that come with a planter pot to catch the water if you overwater them. They're real cheap. There's probably 100 things you could do, but you just get a bigger dish and you can still put a cinder block standing up in it if you chose to make a dam. I have never had cinnamon work for me. A lot of times people put a post and they say, what should I do with the ants? Half of the people say, oh, just use cinnamon. Well, I've lived all over the world. I've tried it in Kuwait, in China, in Australia, in Thailand. I make a circle around the ants with cinnamon. They walk right through it like it's not even there. I've never had luck with cinnamon. I don't know if anyone else has ever actually had luck with cinnamon, but I never have. But the other thing that really works is if you put mix boric acid with jelly, any kind of jam or jelly. I mix it 1-to-1. And I've put my video out there a few times where I actually get a roach trap. It's like the little ant traps, but the roach traps are bigger. I take a pair of scissors, I cut halfway around it. Then I can flip that cover up. And there's a little pocket in there that's got the ant bait in it, or roach bait in it. And just put your jelly with boric acid in there. And you'll probably have to bait those twice. But it really works. I used to have a highway of ants going down the top of my wall, 3 different kinds of ants. And now I hardly ever see an ant. So I think boric acid and jelly, from my experience, like Don said, you got to do what works for you, like everything else in beekeeping. But boric acid and jelly has really helped with my ant problem for sure. Okay, that's it.
Something that I've used before that nobody's suggested yet is using petroleum jelly around the legs of the stands, and that's waterproof. And I've known people that have used the Vapor Rub as well, because that puts off a scent and that will keep the insects from crawling up the legs as well. So you guys might want to try that as well. Just another option. And nobody else has their hand raised. But I know, Ricky, you said something about the respiration holes. Do you want to clarify that?
Yeah, the diatomaceous earth apparently clogs up the respiration holes in the, the thorax or whatever of small insects. So I suppose if you get that on bees, it's probably going to kill them as well. But it's not like a chemical thing. It's just more of really tiny little silica stuff, ancient sort of volcanic type thing or whatever, or it's little fossils or something like that. So that's what I've heard anyway, and I've read that on the internet somewhere. So you can, like, I think people use it for bed bug treatments. They dust that on mattresses. It kills bed bugs. So you can put it around the edges of your house, or near the skirting boards, and it'll kill cockroaches and all that sort of stuff. So.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Okay, Chris Marsh, go ahead.
Hey, Don, I think it was last week or the week before. I forget who was saying, but it was saying that they were having trouble finding the queen in their 10 frames. And I'm having the same problem. Ever since I added the second deep in there, I can't find any queens at all. I see eggs and everything's running good, but is there a tip that you can give us for finding these things? I can't find them.
First of all, why do you need to see the queen? If you see the signs that she was there, larvas, eggs, why do you need to see the queen unless you're selling her?
Basic paranoia of smashing her, or, if I take a frame out, I'm worried that, she's somehow snuggled in underneath the thing where I haven't looked.
Have you heard about tinkeritis? Tinkeritis gets in the hive and does damage. What I do when I'm looking for a queen, I do not look straight on. I hold it like at a 45 down below my belly button, and within just a second, you look across, the queen will stand right out. You gently turn it around and you find it. I had a fella here today, and I was going through mini nukes, and he was timing me 3 to 5 seconds to catch a queen. I mean, once you get that look there, if you look straight in at something, you're not seeing the perception. If you look on an angle, the queen is going to stand out more. That's what works for me.
I think I'm holding it over my head most of the time, up.
You should never hold it head high and look straight in at it, because you're not going to see it.
Gotcha.
Hold it down at least chest level, and then on an angle. Look downward on an angle.
Gotcha.
Now,
Thanks.
the easiest way, if you can't see the queen, is get the sun over your shoulder and look at the center of the frame. If you see white milk in there, you're good to go. You got eggs that's 4 days old. You're fine. Move on.
Gotcha.
There's no point in seeing the queen. And the longer you got that hive open, if you're inexperienced, the higher the risk is you're going to lose a queen. You take a frame out that's got the queen on, and it don't take but a few seconds. That hive is going to start to roar right then. So when you hear that, look at the ground. Don't take a step, because if you take a step, more than likely, if she falls off that frame, you're going to step on her.
Well, I have heard that sound, so
well,
I don't know if I killed any.
The frame that you pulled out, when you do hear that, that's the frame that she'll be on.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Chris, actually, I didn't see my queen for probably the first 2 years. Just very hard to see them, and I look for eggs and young larvae, and that's it, and then I seal it all up.
Gotcha.
I didn't start seeing the queen until it was almost by accident, and then you start realizing what you're looking for and the pattern of the bees around her and whatnot.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, next up is Chris B. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, can everybody hear me? I can't hear myself. Okay, good. Just there was a lot of talk about diatomaceous earth tonight, and I've done a lot of research on that, so I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents of what it is and how it works. Diatomaceous earth is the skeleton of dead sea creatures called diatoms. And what it is it's like if you scaled it up to human size, it would be like walking on or eating glass. So if it gets on an insect, it acts like glass. It gets in their joints and cuts their joints open, and they basically bleed to death. Or if they get it internally, like you're saying, it tears up their internal breathing pathways and that sort of thing. So that's how it acts. It's not actually a chemical that poisons them. So it's a little bit safer than putting a chemical or whatever, but you still have to be careful about getting it in your hive, because it will kill whatever insect it gets on. So I don't know. That's just kind of a little description of what it is and how it works. It's not harmful to humans at all. It's really just kind of like a dust as far as we're concerned. But anyway, whatever that's good for.
Okay, thank you. All right, back to Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, just to follow up on what he was saying, that's all. I was just trying to caution people, because last year we had a really bad year with the bees, and they got really aggressive. We couldn't open up the hive without like full suits and gloves and everything. If you put diatomaceous earth into a beetle blaster and you think you can get that out without spilling it inside the hive with leather gloves on, you're a better person than me. There's no way I could do that. So you have to think about that before you put it into the hive, because you're going to have to pull it back out without spilling it all over the place. And I just feel a little more comfortable with mineral oil, because you spill a little bit, but if you get those grains of diatomaceous earth on 3 or 4 frames, you could kill a queen. So it's just just something to think about. I just thought I'd bring that up. I don't know. That's all I had. Sorry. You have anything to say about that, Don?
There's a lot of things to treat bees with, and it's like I keep telling me, what works for one is not going to work for somebody else. You have to pick and choose. You can treat hives or not treat hives, and by not treating them, you can have a good success rate if you follow simple things. You've got to break the mite cycle, and by splitting hives a lot more than anybody else, you keep the mites under control with using no chemicals. But that doesn't work for everybody. A lot of people only want 5 or 10 hives. And when you start splitting 25, 50 hives a day, 7 days a week, it starts to add up. You run out of room to place them. You run out of boxes. So don't take long.
Thank you.
All right, back to Tyler. Go ahead.
So I've got a couple of mated queens coming. Basically what I'm doing is I had 5 packages. I put 2 in April, and basically by the end of the year, I'm hoping to have about 25 or 30 hives. So I ordered 2 mated queens, and they should be here probably on Monday. And I know we've talked about splits, but I'm brand new at this, so I'm trying to really get this wrapped around my head. I want to make sure I do it right so I'm not screwing up. So I have an 8 frame and a 10 frame. The 10 frame has 2 brood boxes on it, and that hive is really exploded. There's a lot of bees in there. And then my 8 frame, I just have 1 brood box, and that's getting pretty full. So they should be making some swarm cells soon. So I have those 2 mated queens coming. What's my best course of action? I've got some 5 frame nukes sitting out there ready to put bees in. So with those 2 mated queens, what's my best course of action as far as getting those 2 started?
Do you want to make numbers or do you want to make honey?
I want to make numbers.
All right. The next thing to do is take that double. If you got a double and it's full as you say it is, that hive could be split 19 times.
Wow.
Why are you buying queens?
I don't know.
You want to learn, start to do things, start to make mistakes. You're going to learn.
Yep.
By buying queens, you're just making a queen breeder rich. Once you got a couple hives or 10 hives, you should never buy bees again unless you're changing genetics. Now, if it was me, I would take that double, put a lid on one on the bottom board on the other, and put them in singles. And if they're as full as you say they are, go out there in about 12 days, you should have at least 9 frames with cells. Cut them cells out and use a frame of honey with a queen cell that's sealed, it's ripe. and then a frame of honey, shake some bees in there. Put them in a 5-frame box. Now, you're running 10 frame and 8 frame. That 8 frame will outproduce that 10 frame. A 5 frame will outproduce 2 to 1 on that 8 frame because it takes heat. Putting a 1 frame or 2 frames in a 5-frame box, they build the heat up, they build up faster. Once you get the queens mated, then go 8 frame or 10 frame, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
It's a little bit different. You know, making numbers is easy. Building the boxes is going to be your hard thing.
Yeah. So with those 2 mated queens, my plan was to take a, a frame out of, one of the hives and put it in one of my 5-frame nukes and put that mated queen in there and then let them establish from there. Is that the right thing to do, or should I shake a couple frames of bees into that 5-frame nuke with that mated queen?
You're using somebody else's resources and you're not learning nothing. You're learning how to spend your money.
Yep.
You know, I've made a lot of mistakes. No one's perfect. The more mistakes you make, the smarter you get. Pretty soon you don't make the same mistake twice. But if you keep buying bees, right now, if you're buying queens and they're coming in the mail, they run the risk of overheating. You might have damaged queens when you get them.
Yeah.
The smartest thing is try to make your own queens. You know, buy a queen for new genetics. You got enough bees now, you shouldn't have to be buying bees unless you're changing genetics.
That's what I did is I wanted to get some different genetics. I got them from David down there at Barnyard Bees, so I wanted to get some of his genetics. That's why I got the queens from him. So.
You know, everybody approaches beekeeping in a different way. If you want to make numbers, the best thing to do is build a lot of 5-frame boxes and put 1 frame in it, each one. And you don't add extra frames till the queen comes back. And then you add your extra frames. Because when she flies out and mates, she's gathering up a bunch of bees when she comes back. That's the smartest thing. And if you make 20 splits and you lose half of them, you've learned something. You learn what works, what don't work. And the next thing to do is alternate your colors. Don't run all white hives in a bee yard. Do you run different colors now, or are you running all white?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of different colors.
Okay. Running all white hives, it looks pretty. It's nice to look at and everything. But if you got a stand with 6 hives on it, I'll guarantee you the hive on each end is going to be stronger because they drift back and forth and the hives on the end get strongest.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put different colors on the fronts, they can identify the hive better.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, go ahead.
Don, what are these Saskatoon queens that people talk about?
I'm going to make some Smurfberry bees out here. And just because I name them, is someone going to jump on them?
I don't know.
I mean, they could advertise a lot of different things, you know. I mean, there's no bee that's going to be mite-free. Some might manage them better than others. It's a selling thing. It's like people like to buy Buckfast. Buckfast seemed to work fine the first year. And then the second year, they get hot, really hot. So if you got bees you can't work, they're not a pleasure. You're not going to work them, so they're going to end up swarming on you. You have to try different genetics from different people. It's like I don't advertise other than I have bees. People call up, what kind of bees you got? Well, they're honey bees. You know, they're a mixture. You know, I'm not trying to say buy this bee because I raise it. Buy bees that you can work.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, over to Chris B. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a little comment and then a question for Don. I just want to say I agree with Matt about putting that diatomaceous earth in those beetle blasters. I'd dump that sucker right on top of my queen if I put that in the hive. So I was just kind of explaining what it is. But Don, you reminded me of something. I went to a little club meeting locally this week, and they were talking in there a little bit about using a brood break for mite control, which you just mentioned. That it reminded me of that. And one of the ways they were saying to do that was to get like a press-in cage, like you use maybe to protect a cell or introduce a new queen, and cage the queen on the frame with bees in it with her for whatever period of time to have a break in the brood cycle. And I just didn't know if that was something worth doing or what your opinion on that was.
Well, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I personally wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because the queen is like a female. I mean, they got an ovaries. What you're going to do is you're going to stop the ovaries production. So you're breaking the brood cycle. You're stopping the queen from laying. And then when you take her back out of the cage, you're hoping that she's going to resume back. Not always the cage. You know, sometimes it don't work that way. The best thing to do is just keep making splits. Faster you make splits, the more brood break you do.
Yeah.
That's the smartest thing. That way your queen has never stopped laying. She's constantly laying.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about that either. And, you know, when I really get a bad mite problem and in the fall, I use oxalic acid. So, you know,
Well, you shouldn't wait to the fall to do any type of treatments. I
right,
mean,
yeah, or if they get bad, you know, I always treat in the fall before winter time. And then
Yeah.
if I have an issue, I'll treat also.
Okay. Louis is new to the group. Go ahead, Louis.
Hey, thanks. Can you hear me there, Don? Yeah, okay, hey, great. Hey, Don, I've made about 20 splits, and I'm raising my own queens, or trying to at least. I've done the Chinese grafting tool. I've done the where you take the little plug out and you stick it in. I think it's what's that called?
Nicot?
No, you use the little, you use the little wire and you put it down over, you heat it up and put it down over the cell punch.
Cell punching.
Yeah, okay, I've tried that. But what I'm doing now is I'm using your cut a strip of brood of both eggs and larvae from about 1 day old to 3 to 4 day old. And I've taken that strip and I put it in about 10 hives or nukes, all right, new splits. I put 2 frames, 1 frame of brood, and another frame usually of pollen and honey. What's happened though is that the bees have, in half of those, about 5 or 6, over half, the workers have torn down the strip. They've actually just, I don't know, just eaten the eggs, or they've even torn apart the wax itself, almost like, you know, it was a foreign object or something, that they didn't like it. So I'm struggling why that might happen. And the only thing that I can think of is that perhaps it was because I used strips from a different hive to build that specific nuke. Seems like you're shaking your head no.
First of all, you want to make queen cells.
Pardon
right?
me?
You want to make queen cells.
Yeah, well, actually I've made, out of the 10 nukes, I've made 5 of the strips have been successful, and they usually make about 3 queen cells on the strips. So that, you know, I'll give them about 10 to 20 eggs and larvae in that one long strip, I'm sure. But I only end up with
closer
about,
to 100%?
Pardon me?
Do you want to get closer to a 100%?
Yeah, I sure do. That's why I'm here.
Why are you putting brooding there?
Because I'm still learning. Yeah.
If you put 2 frames, you get 1 frame of honey, 1 frame of comb, draw it out, then put that strip in there, shake you a frame or a frame and a half of bees, assorted ages. Look for bees that are real dusty looking. Those are your new bees.
Sure.
Now, you don't have no brooding there. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to jump on anything that they can make a queen out of.
Okay, so
that make more sense?
It makes sense, okay, because the truth is that I have been looking for brood to put in with them, with this strip.
Once you cut that strip, set it between 2 frames, you know, you're going to get, I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. I mean, if you're already doing a Chinese method and you're setting up a grafting box, then that takes a lot more resources.
Oh, it does. And that's why I kind of gave up. I realized it really took a lot of bees.
Yeah.
And I went from, I'm running all 5-frame nukes. So I had a 3-hive 5-frame nuke, and I cut it down to one box. And that was the only way I could get the Chinese grafting tool and the cups to work, is that just have that really loaded. But that just seemed like a lot of work. So I'm trying to find an easier way to go about it. The strip way seems
do the work. You're trying too hard. The bees know how to do this stuff.
Sure.
Remember, always go back to the basic things. Bees only do 2 things. They multiply and they store honey.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I think I think that you hit it right on, because the truth is that I've been putting brood in there and thinking that that's what I'm supposed to do. But what you're saying is, well, in fact, that will actually make it easier, because what happens is that I'm looking for brood to cut the strips. So actually you're destroying the brood, so you can only find so much. And obviously you probably already know that the queen is usually laying right around the edge of the new comb in the hive. So you're cutting that new comb that she's laying in to get the good brood. There's only so much of that in a nuke. So if I don't have to split with brood, hey, I'm happy about that.
Split only when you have queen cells. That's the smartest thing. Never make a split without a queen cell or a mated queen.
Yeah,
So,
I got it.
I mean, that's what I designed or started these videos of, being common sense beekeeping. Keep the high tech out of it, and it works much better.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
The queen cells don't seem very big. Maybe on YouTube, people are just showing the biggest queen cells, but it seems like the queen cells are smaller than what I see on YouTube.
Where do you live?
Get bigger after they after they hatch out?
Well, they'll grow, but where do you live?
Washington State.
All right, there you go. Washington State, now you've got a damp area up there, so you're going to have a lot more bees.
I'm in Eastern Washington. It's hotter than heck here. Yeah, today it was 90.
You got to have enough bees, and they have to feed that larva. And if you don't have young bees to make royal jelly, you got old bees. That's like people come here to learn how to make bees on a regular basis. Anybody can make bees in a starter hive once, twice. Going on the 3rd time, the percentages drop from 100 down to 70, 60. And if you do it the 4th time or 5th time, then you're down to 30%. Sure. If they just use common sense and shook 4 frames of brand new bees, young bees in front of the hive, let the field bees fly back. Now you got nurse bees. Now your percentages jump back up to 100%.
I got it, Don. I appreciate it. I think you're right on, and I'll change my methodology tomorrow.
When you're grafting 100 to 200 cells to a box, those bees basically wear out. So you have to keep replacing them with the younger bees. That's the whole trick. Everything that I try to teach is common sense, and people, when you explain that to them, they say, "Wow, I didn't even think of that. I thought those bees was good because it was full of bees. The bees is old."
So when the queen hatches, basically there won't be any brood in the frames. Is that right?
Are you talking about grafting?
Yeah, I'm talking about when I'm using the strip method.
Well, if you're doing that and you're doing a strip, you're going to have only the larvae that's in the strip.
Yeah.
So no, you're not going to have no brood other than that.
And the nurse bees they're
feeding it well. They're feeding it really good.
Okay.
So when those queens hatch, they're going to fly out and bring more bees. A good queen cell, you look at your little finger from the tip to the first joint. That's what a normal queen cell should be. If one is longer than that, it's fed under emergency things and they've got extra royal jelly in there, or it's an old larva. If it's too short, it's not underfed. They didn't have enough pollen and the royal jelly to feed them.
All right. I got it, Don. Much appreciated.
It's all simple. I mean, it's just everyday stuff.
Well, I think it's simple if you know how to do it.
You just don't want to overthink it.
But I will agree, I will make a comment in regards to the last, I think it was Tyler who was talking, was that you made a comment is the hardest part is building the boxes, because I'm building all my boxes, and I'll tell you, that's what takes the largest amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all the frames and the boxes, and it seems like taking care of the bees is the easy part, as long as I can figure it out.
Well, the main thing is if you keep ahead in the wintertime, you've got to build. If you think you want 100 hives, build 500 nukes. That's a good start.
Yeah.
Because each hive, you're going to split it and split it and split it.
Well, I built 100 nukes and about 600 frames, so I have a ways to go.
Well, you just got to keep doing it. Keep at it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last question from Matt. Go ahead.
I guess it's not really a question. We're kind of newer to this than you, Don, and so some things that seem so simple to you are a lot harder to us relative beginners. And so I just wanted to address Chris's trouble finding the queen, and I know you gave him a tip. Elizira. But generally, my wife is able to find what frame the queen is going to be on. Generally, it's a cluster of bees. You can open the top. She'll be where the cluster of bees is. I don't know, my wife has a better talent at that than I do. In addition to that, they like apparently new comb. Is that right, Don?
They prefer the new comb. If I put new comb in or let them draw their own comb, 9 times out of 10, you pull that new comb, that's where you're going to find her.
And what I'm guessing is going on there is they're trying to backfill it, because right now we're in a flow. So if there's comb where they can put honey, they will. And so anything new, the queen's just going to lay up if she can get to it. So I think that's the reasoning behind it. I don't know. Like I said, I'm new to this, but I just wanted to throw that out there and help Chris, because we're struggling with this too, and it's some of these little tips that off the top of your head, us beginners don't.
Oh, and I wanted to say, Matt made me an observation hive. It's in our breakfast room. That is the coolest thing, the most wonderful thing to have bees in your kitchen. I love it. It is so awesome.
It's better than TV.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, you can. It's definitely educational. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, because I'm sorry, we've got a distraction. We've got a new puppy, so I'm sorry. But one of the things that I wanted to mention to Tyler, I think he's kind of new to this group. If you're looking to get bees, for next year, what we did this year was we built some swarm traps. And Don's got some pretty good videos on that, on how to make cleats and everything, on how to put them on trees and stuff like that. And we were so much more successful than we thought we would be.
I think we've gotten 10 wild swarms.
Right. I built 8 boxes originally, and we've already caught about 10. I think 2 of them swarmed on us, but basically
free bees,
and they could have survived the winter on their own, wild bees, so they're kind of acclimated to your climate. So I just thought I'd put that out there as a resource. And they have some plans to build cheap boxes out of like OSB, and that's what we did. The D-coats boxes, and I know, Don, you prefer, those the finger joints and everything, but I figure I'm only ever going to use these for maybe 3 years or something.
I don't prefer finger joint or box joint. I prefer a rabbit joint.
Right, the ones that go like this.
No, that's a box joint. A rabbit joint is like a drawer front. It's rabbited around 3 corners, 3 sides.
Both of those are superior to the joint that the D-coats method has, because you get a little more reinforcement. But I mean,
and free bees. It's
yeah,
awesome.
And OSB only costs $15 a sheet, and you can make 4 box out of a sheet of it. And if somebody takes the box, you know, you're not out that much.
Yeah, I actually built 8 swarm traps in April, and I have them all out. I just haven't caught anything yet. So,
well, where are you placing them?
I have them at a variety of different places. I've got a couple down on my grandpa's farm. Of just different places. I've watched a bunch of videos on catching wild swarms, and that's kind of, you know, what I tried to go with as far as where to place them and stuff. I did place a couple of them in locations where back before I was a beekeeper, this is my first year beekeeping, so I'm just brand new at this. But I placed 2 at a couple locations where there have been swarms in the previous years that I knew about. So we'll see what happens. We had a really late start to summer and spring up here in Ohio, so I think here in the middle of June, stuff's really going to start kicking. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, this, like I said, this is my first year, and we were so much more successful than I thought we would be. So, you know, hopefully it works out for you. And, you know, there's some tips and stuff, and obviously you've looked into it about placing it near fields, you know, tree lines near fields and things like that. And yeah, if you've seen bees, that's a good place to place them. Don probably knows a ton more than I do. Maybe he can comment on that.
If you want free bees, I mean, I give a lot of swarms to students that want to go get them because I can make bees cheaper than I can go get them. But if you want free bees, there's free bees out there. All you have to do is call 911, your fire department, call every pest control within an hour of your drive and tell them you'll pick up swarms. And if you do a cutout, charge for it. I mean, there's loads. You can stay on the road pulling swarms all day long. And right now you're coming up north is just now coming into swarm season. Down here, we're at the peak and probably start tapering off in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But there is free bees out there, and there's nothing wrong with them. There's beekeepers get lazy, they get busy, they don't work their hive, and they swarm. They get too big and they swarm on them.
Well, that's what I've been trying to do the last couple of weeks, drive around and try to find beekeepers that I can, you know, see their hives, and I try to find a location, you know, across the road or whatever. I do have a swarm trap set up like that across from where a guy's got a bunch of hives. So, you know, hopefully something happens there.
Just make sure you have lemongrass oil in there. And,
oh yeah,
you know, that's the biggest part. At least, you know, as far as I understand it. Okay, well, that's all I had to say. I just wanted to mention that. Thanks, Don.
Okay.
And that will be it for tonight. Thank you, Don. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Appreciate everybody showing up. Thanks for coming in.
All right, everyone.
Night.
Good night.